talk student loan debt. I have a very love-hate relationship with student loans. Let me tell you a quick little story. A few years ago, I had the opportunity to go into a real-world math class and teach about credit. And I went off on this little tangent about how bad I hate student loans. Nobody should get student loans. Student loans are of the devil. Don't go there. And I got reprimanded by the teacher, which she rightfully so had the ability to say this. And, sometimes student loans are just required. And they are. They really have a good use if you're smart. So today we're going to talk about two different things about student loans. One, the importance of keeping track of them after you have got out of school and understanding the repayment requirements and all of that goes into it. And then also the importance of it's not free money. You don't get to live the high life off of it. So the first path we're going to go down is how student loans work. So you apply for a student loan, and there's some logistics behind it, and I'm not going to get into that here. I am just going to tell you apply for a student loan and you're approved for that $5,000 student loan. That's going to help you take care of your books, your tuition. Let's just say, maybe I should have increased the number. I don't know, because I don't have student loans in my world, so I don't know exactly the dollar amount. But let's just in our perfect world say $5,000 is good. So I have this $5,000 loan that I've got, and in my perfect world, 500 of it is my books, and 1,500 of it is my tuition. So right now I've got 2,000 of my 5,000 spent just by putting that into books and my tuition. So I have $3,000 left over. See, those student loan companies is just going to hand you that $5,000. It's just deposited into your account because it's truly a loan that you've taken. The problem that I see in my little world is there's people who just get that much money and they don't realize that is not just free money. So set yourself up on a budget. If you're going to use that $5,000 to live on for that semester, that's fantastic. Do it. Give yourself a budget that $3,000 for that particular semester is going to be X amount of dollars per month to live on for groceries and your rent payment, whatever the case may be that you're doing, and stay living within your means. If it's possible that you don't have to use that extra $3,000 in our scenario and you can just stash that away or just have it so that you only have to do a student loan every other semester or something like that, that's fantastic. But don't take that $5,000, pay your tuition, pay your books, and then go buy a big TV and an Xbox because you want that in your apartment because you've never had that and you think it's great. Nah, don't be doing that. Don't be doing that. Use your student debt for student needed items. And obviously we know there are going to be situations that you're going to be living off some of that student debt just to live off of. And that's okay. Just be smart. Give yourself a budget. It's not free money. So now that we're have that embedded in your head, live within your means with your student loan debt, you have to realize that money is going to have to be paid back. No matter what the President of the United States does at the time that you graduate from college, in whatever forgiveness programs or whatever promises are out there, you have to live in a world where you are having to pay that student loan debt back. And you have to have that in your mind that you are paying that money back somehow. And it's accruing interest. The day you take that out, it is daily interest charges going against that balance. So whatever the interest rate might be on that, every day you don't pay that money back, it's accruing. So $5,000 isn't $5,000 payback. It's a lot more than that by the time you've accrued the interest. So living within your means with student loans is super, super critical. Also be smart with this. If it's going to cost you $50,000 in student loan debt to get through college and you graduate from college with a degree that your starting salary is $35,000, we got to rethink what we're doing here. Maybe you sit out a semester and earn some money to pay for some of your college. Let's look at the big picture and make sure the student loan debt you're taking out is actually going to be paid back in the career path you're going. Be smart there. I did some financing for a gal years and years and years ago. She had $125,000 of student loan debt and not a degree to show for it. And I pounded her with questions multiple times thinking, did I misunderstand that? Seriously, you went to all that school and accrued all of that debt and you don't even have a degree? blew my mind, guys. It absolutely just blew my mind. And so that will stick with me for the rest of my life. And whatever the case might be as to what she had done, I'm thinking she lived the high life off of her student loans, thinking that she wasn't going to have to pay them back. So be smart. Be smart with your student loans. Now, also with that, on the repayment side of this is what's super critical that I see on people's credit. When you get out of college, you're not making payments on those student loans until you're actually graduated or no longer attending school. And what happens when you get out of school is you sit down with your counselor and you say, hey, I owe $10,000 in student loan debt. What do I do? And they look at your income and they say, well, you're not making enough money to pay that student loan debt back. So we're going to put you on what's called an income-based repayment, and that's at zero. Don't you worry. You don't have to make a payment on that student loan debt. And so great. Okay. I don't have to do that. But keep in mind this, every year you have to reapply for that. Every year you have to bring in your income documentation to prove whether or not you still fall in that same category of not having to make that payment back. This is where people get into trouble. They go onto an income-based repayment agreement and it's a zero payment. Then they forget in 12 months that they have to redo that, and they don't go in and file the paperwork. And all of a sudden on month 13, they have a 30-day late on their credit report. Month 14, that just went to 60 days late on your credit. Month 15, that just went to 90 days late on your credit, and so on and so forth until it gets into collections. And unfortunately, I don't think the communication there is that fantastic. And so you usually find out when you apply for a car loan or a mortgage that you have a student loan debt that's on the verge of collection, if not already there. The hard part about that, everybody, is student loan debt for the most part is government. That means you don't get to escape the government. You don't get to file bankruptcy and walk away from that. You don't get to just close your eyes and hope it goes away. It will stop you in your tracks if you do not take care of your student loans. It is super critical if you're in one of those income-based repayment programs that you are very conscientious of your calendar of events. I qualify for an income-based repayment. That means 12 months from now, actually 11 months that I would say, I got to get in front of my rep that takes care of my student loans and make sure that they actually get me put back on my income-based repayment. Maybe my income's going to increase. I definitely need to make sure I'm prepared to make those payments and just be aware of that. You've also got the ability to defer those student loans if you're still in school, and some of your situations, you'll have to deal with that, case by case. But if you've deferred them, that's great. But you still have to keep in touch with the people in charge of your student loans and make sure that they have all the proper paperwork filed, that stays in the status that it is. They have your social security number. It will report to your credit report. So don't be living off of your student loans and living the high life. Be smart, put yourself on a budget, realize what you borrow, you have to pay back. Make sure that once you are out of school, you are very, very on top of communicating with that student loan company. I would say also with this, when you get out of school, more than likely, you're not going to be living in the same apartment that you are living in right now, going to school, or would be at the time. You're going to be moving back home. Maybe you get married and you move away. Maybe you take a job out of the state. Whatever the case might be, you have to remember that student loan will follow you on your social security number. If you do not give a forwarding address or some way to communicate with you, they're going to try to get a hold of you to let you know what's going on with your student loan. But if you choose to not give the proper information on where to send your mail, you're still going to have that affect your credit. You can't hide from it. So be aware of the communication with your student loan company. If you're going to move, log in, change your mailing address, log in, make sure you have your email communications up, make sure that's the way you've got it tagged. You move into your new home, you're sitting at a new mark that maybe you need to find out if you qualify for income-based repayment or deferment or what's the situation. Make the phone call to the student loan company. It is super critical to stay in front of that. Student loans are very easy to get, in my opinion. And they are such an amazing program for people to be able to afford to go to college. And they are such a good thing as long as you're not taking advantage of it and you're being aware of what's going on around you. Be aware of how much it's going to cost you to go to school. Make sure that the career you're going into is a career that you can pay back those student loans. if it's not a career that's going to pay back those student loans, step back just for a second and look. Maybe you need to get a job. I already said this. Maybe you need to get a job and step out for a semester. Work hard. It's such a short period of time that you're in college, and it will be so worth it if you can do that with little to no student loan debt. Or if you do have to have student loan debt and you can't work because it's just not something that you can handle, that's okay. Just don't live the high life off your student loans. I know that there is a need for student loans. It is just super critical that student loans are at the very utmost of your thought processes when you are out of school and you're no longer considered a student. Find out where it's at, find out its status, find out your responsibilities. I think student loans are great. I want to just reiterate the fact, no matter what the President of the United States of America is doing or whatever promises you have about this job, if you take it over here, they'll pay off your student loans. They are your responsibility until you see that they are a zero balance. Do not put your head in the sand and forget about them. Pay attention, be an adult, don't be afraid, and be smart when it comes to student loans. So as always, I'm going to leave you here. If you've got any questions that I can help with, we do have an email address. It's adultingandafraid@gmail.com. The and is spelled out, so make sure you spell it out. So adultingandafraid@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, you by all means have every right to reach out to me. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful step forward with your student loans, and don't be afraid. Be an adult and just don't be afraid.